Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog. This time I'm going to be reading 3 books and they are all mysteries and 2 of them are thrillers and the other is more like literary fiction. In my May TBR I talked about 4 books that I was going to read for book clubs and these 3 books are 3 of those books. And the first one is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. Then I read They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. And finally, Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I'm not going to talk too much about these books right now because during the reading footage, I read the synopsis of each book and I don't want to be repeating myself. I tried to keep this vlog mostly spoiler free, but I do go into some spoilers, and when that happens, I put a spoiler warning on the screen so you can skip if you don't want any spoilers about these books. Also, again, in order not to spoil anything for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled, I'll have the trigger warnings for all of these books down in the description below. And I think we can jump into the reading footage. Hello! Today is Tuesday, May 11th, I would say. In case anyone's wondering if this is like a different room, it is because this is a different house. While I was doing my lab work and going to the National Institute of Forensic Science, it's not in the same area where my parents' house is, so I'm renting a house with the roommate I talked about in previous videos, and this is that house. While I was doing my lab work, I would spend the whole week here and then the weekend at home. But now, since I'm done with the lab work and I'm just writing my thesis, I spend 1 week home and 1 week here, 1 week home and 1 week here, and yeah, this week I'm here. But anyway, the first book I'm going to be starting with is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. That's the May book for the Book Troop Book Club, which is hosted by Gabby from Gabby Reads. And well, this one is a thriller. I was reading the synopsis on Goodreads, and this is what it says. Welcome to Chapel Croft. 500 years ago, 8 Protestant, oh my god, I cannot read. Martyrs were burned at the stake here. 30 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared without a trace, and 2 months ago, the vicar of local parish killed himself. Reverend Jack Brooks, a single parent with a 14-year-old daughter and a heavy conscience, arrives in the village hoping to make a fresh start and find some peace. Instead, Jack finds a town mirrored in secrecy and strange welcome package. An old exorcism kit and a note quoting scripture. But there is nothing covered up that will not be revealed and hidden that will not be known. The more Jack and daughter Flo get acquainted with the town and its strange denizens, the deeper they are drawn into their rifts, mysteries, and suspicions. And when Flo is troubled by strange sightings in the old chapel, it becomes apparent that there are ghosts here that refuse to be laid to rest. But uncovering the truth can be deadly in a village where everyone has something to protect. Everyone has links with the village's bloody past, and no one trusts an outsider. So, that sounds really exciting. And I don't have, the physical copy. I actually don't have the physical copy for any of the 3 books I'm going to read during this reading vlog, and for this one I have the ebook, and it's actually in Portuguese. So, and I think it's also the Brazilian version because it's Garotas em Chamas, and I don't think that's how we would say it in Portugal, so yeah, I'm gonna start reading that now. It's the next day, and I was able to get 47% into The Burning Girls. And there are kind of 2 stories happening, and one of them is supernatural, and I'm putting air quotes on it because I don't know if it's actually supernatural or if someone's doing it, because if you go on Goodreads, supernatural is not one of the genres of this book. Also, I hate that word, generous, because I can never say it right. I don't know how to say that, and I hate it. But that's besides the point. There are 2 stories, happening, and one is supernatural, and the other is, related to the 2 missing girls and also the reverend who was there before Jack. And, I mean, so far, I'm like way more interested in the supernatural one. And I don't know if that's because I love supernatural stuff or if it's because it's actually more interesting. But yeah, like I'm way more interested in that part. And I mean, the book is kind of focusing more on the other part. But I mean, I'm intrigued by both of them, but also definitely more into the supernatural one. And like, there's a guy, I mean, two guys, but mostly one guy, who's really weird and creepy. And I feel like he's gonna be one of those characters that are like purposely creepy. So we think that they have something to do with what's happening, but they turn out to not have anything to do with what's happening. Like, I feel that's who he is. Also, like, the book changes from like a third person perspective to a first person perspective. Like when it's Jack's chapters, it's in a first person perspective, and when it's Flo or like any other character, like in flashbacks, it's third person. And that's kind of bothering me a little. And yeah, I'm like almost halfway through, and like if I had to rate it right now, I think I'd give it 4 stars. But I mean, I still have a lot of the book to go, so yeah, I'm gonna get back to reading. Hey, so it's 11:25 p.m. and I have finished The Burning Girls. And I was a little disappointed, and to be honest, that was probably like my problem and not the book, because I was just expecting it to focus more on like the actual Burning Girls, and it didn't. And that was like the storyline I was most invested in. And yeah, I didn't get much of it. I didn't get as much as I wanted, as much as I was really like craving, because I was really interested in that. And yeah, I didn't get it, but I did get more invested in the other storyline. And I mean, that was fun. That was fine. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And yeah, as I said, that was probably my own problem, because I didn't have the right expectations for that book. I have to say that the most like anxiety-inducing scene of the whole book was when a guy was like about to hurt a dog. Because it was like, you want to hurt people? Okay. You want to kill people? Okay. You want to hurt a dog? I cannot handle that. Like, nope, nope. So I was really freaking nervous. I was really anxious. And yeah, that was definitely the most anxiety-inducing scene in the whole book. And if I had to rate it right now, I think I would give it like 3.5. That's what I'm leaning towards. But I will have a more definitive rating when I do the outro for this video. This has nothing to do with books, but this week, my friend and I, like my roommate and I, got obsessed with a TV show, and just want to say that it was amazing. We are obsessed, and it's called Girl from Nowhere, and it's so good. It's about a girl who, I mean, very mysterious girl, first of all. No idea who she is, what she is, but I love her. She goes to like different schools, and she's like the bringer of karma, and yes, perfection. But anyway, the next book I'm gonna be reading is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, which is the May book for the Literally Dead book club, which is hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala. And well, I'm gonna also read the synopsis from Goodreads like I do The Burning Girls. And it says, Scarlett Clark is an exceptional English professor, but she's even better at getting away with murder. Every year, she searches for the worst man at Gorman University and plots his well-deserved demise. And like, after watching Girl from Nowhere, this is the plot. Anyway, let's continue. Thanks to her meticulous planning, she's avoided drawing attention to herself. But as she's preparing for her biggest kill yet, the school starts probing into the growing body count on campus. Which, I mean, makes sense, if there are a lot of people dying on one campus. That's kind of suspicious, They should be probing. Determined to keep her enemies close, Scarlett insinuates herself into the investigation and charms the woman in charge, Dr. Mina Pierce. Everything's going according to her master plan, until she loses control with her latest victim, putting her secret life at risk of exposure. Meanwhile, government student Carly Schiller is just trying to survive her freshman year, finally free of her emotionally abusive father. All Carly wants is to focus on her studies and fade into the background. Her new roommate has other ideas. Alison Hadley is cool and confident, everything Carly wishes she could be, and the two girls quickly form an intense friendship. So, when Alison is sexually assaulted at a party, Carly becomes obsessed with making the attacker pay, and turning her fantasies about revenge into a reality. So, that sounds exciting. And I mean, it's 11:32 now, so I don't really know how much I am actually gonna read tonight. And like I do have the ebook and also the audiobook. So what I'm probably gonna do is like start the audiobook and maybe like draw something while I'm listening to it because I am tired. Hey, it's the next day, and as you probably saw, I didn't end up like drawing or painting anything. I decided to play Minecraft instead while I was listening to the audiobook because I was kind of bored of my old world, so I created a new world. And yeah, I basically like built a house while I was listening to the audiobook. And well, getting to what actually matters. The book opened up with Scarlett killing someone, which is always fun to read about. And I say this with no sarcasm whatsoever. Yeah, that was cool. And like, I got to 46% of the book. And like, I didn't start reading at 11:30, like I said I would. It was actually after midnight. And that's why I stayed up reading until like 2:40 a.m. So far, like, we've been following Scarlett and Carly and like their relationships in the university. And the last thing I read was actually like the sexual assault scene that is mentioned in the synopsis. And I have a theory. And like, I would really like it if my theory was correct. And I mean, I feel like it's gonna be, because it's pretty obvious. And once I finish like reading the book, I'll put a spoiler warning and talk about my theory, like whether it was right or not. I feel like everything's gonna start like happening now. And like, I'm actually really excited to continue reading, but I was really, really tired last night, so I couldn't stay up any longer. I have finished They Never Learn. And just like I thought, everything started like coming together after like I last updated, and like we found out how Scarlett and Carly's stories were connected. And like the first half of the book, I was way more interested in Scarlett's story, but like after they like merged, I didn't care much about Scarlett's story, but like I was way more invested in Carly's. And like during the whole book, I was wondering what was gonna happen to one specific character. And like I had to say that I was really surprised. Like I did not see that coming. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning on the screen, so if you wanna skip the spoilers, just skip the part where it's like on the screen. My theory was that Scarlett was Carly, because there were some hints, and like, yeah, that was right. They were the same person. Like Scarlett was just Carly but older. And like there was a scene where Carly was going to a party with her friend, and her friend had dyed her hair blue. And like at the same time, Scarlett was watching some college girls going to a party. One of them had blue hair, so like I guess that was supposed to like throw us off from thinking that they were the same person. But yeah, they were the same person. And like the point was basically to show how Carly went from just, a normal girl to Scarlett, who just, kills men. And like, I get it, what Scarlett was doing, but when she was like talking to Mina, she was like trying to like find an excuse, and she was like, I only kill men, I've never killed women. And I was like, I get your point, but also, what if a woman was doing the same things, you know? What if it was a woman abusing her power or like sexually assaulting someone? Wouldn't you also kill them just because they were a woman? Like, you know? Yeah. Like, maybe I am missing the whole point, but I just didn't think that was a good enough excuse. I am trying to, like, be objective about how much I like this book or not. But when you have something to compare it to, even if you try to be objective, you're always going to compare it, right? And like when I was reading the synopsis, I said that like the plot was somewhat similar to that show, Girl from Nowhere. And I just liked the show so much more. And I cannot compare both stories. And I'm not saying I didn't have fun like reading this book. Like I had a lot of fun. I really liked it, but it wasn't as good as the show. So like my rating right now is like at 3.5, but I'm still gonna think a little more about it. And I will definitely have a more definitive rating when I film the outro. So the next book I'm gonna read is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and that is the May book for the Crusty Club Reads, which is hosted by Chanel from Chanel Time. And once again, I am going to read the synopsis from Goodreads. Lydia is dead, but they don't know this yet. So begins this exquisite novel about a Chinese-American family living in the 1970s small-town Ohio. Lydia is the favorite child of Marilyn and James Lee, and her parents are determined that she will fulfill the dreams they were unable to pursue. But when Lydia's body is found in the local lake, the delicate balancing act that has been keeping the Lee family together is destroyed, tumbling them into chaos. A profoundly moving story of family, secrets, and longing. Everything I Never Told You is both a gripping page-turner and a sensitive family portrait, uncovering the ways in which mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, and husbands and wives struggle all their lives to understand one another. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna start reading next.
1. Lydia is dead, but they don't know this yet. 1977, May 3rd, 6:30 in the morning. No one knows anything but this innocuous fact. Lydia is late for breakfast. As always, next to her cereal bowl, her mother has placed a sharpened pencil and Lydia's physics homework. 6 problems flagged with small ticks.
As you must have seen, yesterday I actually drew something while I listened to the audiobook, and I hadn't tried to draw a face in over a year because I suck at drawing faces, and like I drew that in 10 minutes, and that's why it looks like that. But yeah, I got 53% into the book, and like the beginning is the family finding out about Lydia's death, and then like her brother's thinking about her, and we find out that her parents don't actually know anything about her, like her real life, who she really is. Like she was keeping a lot of secrets. And later, as the book progresses, we find out that Lydia was not the only one keeping secrets. The whole family, like all the members, are keeping secrets. And I mean, obviously there's like the storyline of trying to find out what happened to Lydia, like why she died. But this book is mostly about getting to know the characters, like the family, the characters, like themselves, and also their family dynamics. And I usually don't love these types of books because I like a plot that moves forward like fast. I like action. So I wasn't sure how much I was going to enjoy this book, but I am loving it. I am loving getting to know these characters and like their secrets, their lives, their personalities, their dynamics like with each other and like with the whole family. I'm absolutely loving it. And since I'm like 53% into it already, I'm probably gonna finish it today, so I think I'll just update with my final thoughts. I have just finished Everything I Never Told You, like a few minutes ago, and I am sad. I know that I mentioned how like the parents didn't know Lydia at all, but yeah, later we learned that they didn't know any of their children, and they also like didn't know a lot about each other. And I mean, the children obviously didn't know much about their parents either. And it was it was sad. Like, it was really sad. I really want to talk about some spoilers because I need to talk about it. So if you don't want any spoilers, just skip ahead until there is no spoiler warning on the screen. But basically, I mean, already from the synopsis, like, it said that Lydia was their favorite child, and they had a lot of expectations for her. Their mother wanted her to be a doctor because the mother had wanted to be a doctor herself, and she hadn't been successful in being a doctor herself. So, like, she wanted her daughter to basically follow her dream. And well, the father, he wanted her to be social and to have friends and to just blend in, since that's what he wanted for himself too. And since Lydia was the favorite child, they didn't really care much about their other kids. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't love them. I mean, of course they loved them, but since they only like thought about Lydia's future, it's like they didn't see their other children. Like, they didn't care about Nate's passion. They didn't care. They barely even cared when he got accepted to Harvard. And I mean, the younger sister, Hannah, she really was invisible. She always felt invisible, but like to her parents and also to her siblings. I'm not saying Lydia liked the attention. Like, she absolutely did not like how much pressure was put on her. She didn't want to be all that. She just wanted to be herself, and she couldn't. And she felt like the only person who like understood her was her brother Nate. So when he left for college, she felt even more alone. And she was like hanging out with a boy called Jack. And then she found out that he didn't like her, he liked her brother. So she felt even more alone. And I think the saddest part about this book, I mean, it was all sad, don't get me wrong, it was all very sad. But I think the saddest part was that just before Lydia died, she had decided that she was just going to be herself. She was just gonna finally live her life, be herself. She was just gonna be free. And then she died, and yeah, it was so sad. So sad. So, like I said, the parents didn't really know their children, and I thought that I would really be pissed about that. And I mean, I was, don't get me wrong, I was, but they also had so much going on in their own lives. I couldn't hate them because they were also going through so much, and like also their children, like, they felt invisible, right? They didn't feel seen by their parents, but they forgot that like their parents were also going through stuff. And I think that, you know, that happens to a lot of kids. It's, you just think as your parents, you know, not about their life out of being your parents. Finally, like, for my rating, and I don't need like more time to think about this one, it was an easy 5 out of 5 stars for me. I absolutely loved it. It was so beautifully written, and even though it was sad, like really sad, it was so beautiful. And the ending was both so sad and so hopeful at the same time. I was like, I almost cried, and I don't cry with books. And I think that also going into this book with the right expectations was like a big part of me loving it, because I knew that it wasn't gonna be a thriller with like twists and turns about Lydia's death. I knew that this was going to be more like literary fiction. And so, yeah, going into this book with the right expectations definitely like helped me loving it, because I knew what to expect. When I finished reading The Burning Girls, I think I said I was leaning towards a 3.5 star rating, and I still agree with that. That is my final rating for that book. I like the story, I like the twists, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. I didn't get what I wanted. And what I wanted was like probably more interesting for me. So yeah, it's, although I enjoyed what happened, I didn't love it. And it was a 3.5. Then, They Never Learn. Also, I guess expectation problems. I mean, this wasn't much expectations. It was more like comparing it to something somewhat similar. Like, the show I watched was just better. I mean, in my opinion, of course. So yeah, I ended up also giving that one a 3.5. And lastly, I read Everything I Never Told You. And Oh my god, that book was perfect. I knew what this book was going to be like. I knew I wasn't going to get a thriller. It wasn't going to be like an exciting chase after whoever killed Lydia. I knew it was going to be more like a character study, and it was. This book was just about like the characters and their dynamics, the family dynamics between siblings and between parents and children, and also the pressure that parents sometimes put on children, and sacrifice and racial identity and also grief. And it was just so beautiful, even though it was so sad. It was so incredibly sad, but it was really, really beautiful. Like the writing was amazing, and yeah, it was a very easy 5 out of 5 stars for me. I think this concludes this week's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!